I should have known something was wrong the moment Marcus volunteered to help organize the neighborhood block party. My husband hadn't shown interest in community events since we moved to Asheville 3 years ago, right after I got the position at the public health department. He was always too busy with his consulting work, too tired from his gym sessions, too invested in whatever new podcast had captured his attention that week. But when I mentioned needing someone to coordinate with the food vendors, he practically leaped off the couch, that smile I used to love spreading across his face like he'd just been handed a winning lottery ticket. "I got you, babe," he said, kissing my forehead in that way that used to make me feel cherished, but had started feeling more like a dismissal. "You're always doing so much for everyone else. Let me take something off your plate." I was Kendra Wallace, 28 years old, and I'd spent the last 6 months planning this block party for Montford Avenue. It was part of my job, technically, building community connections to improve health outcomes in the historically Black neighborhoods that gentrification was slowly erasing. But it was also personal. This tree-lined street with its mix of old Victorian houses and newer renovations, its blend of longtime residents and newcomers, its Saturday morning greetings and Tuesday evening dog walkers, this was supposed to be home. The kind of place where my mama would have felt proud to see me settled, before the cancer took her 2 years back. So I said yes to Marcus helping. I said yes because I was drowning in permit applications and vendor contracts and playlist considerations. I said yes because marriage was supposed to be partnership, and maybe this was him finally stepping up the way I'd been asking him to in our therapy sessions. I didn't know I was handing him the rope he'd use to hang me. The permit application required a primary organizer's signature, mine, and a secondary contact. I printed Marcus's name in neat block letters, added his cell number, and thought nothing of it. The city approved us for Saturday, June 15th, from noon until 9 p.m. We could close down 3 blocks of Montford, set up booths and a small stage, serve food as long as we had the right vendor licenses. Everything was official. Everything was mine. If you're watching this, thank you for being here. Hit that subscribe button because this story gets so much messier before it gets better, and you're going to want to follow how it all plays out. Let me back up a little bit, give you the full picture of how I ended up here. Marcus and I met 5 years ago at a mutual friend's birthday party in Charlotte. I was finishing my master's in public health at UNC Charlotte, working part-time at a community clinic in the West Side, barely sleeping, running on ambition and student loans, and my mama's voice in my head telling me to make something of myself. He was 2 years into his consulting business, helping small companies with their marketing strategies, wearing a suit that looked expensive and a confidence that seemed earned. He approached me at the bar, not in that aggressive way some men do, but easy, asking what I was drinking, complimenting the way I'd styled my locks, telling me I had the kind of smile that made a room brighter. I know, it sounds like a line, but the way he said it felt genuine. The way he listened when I talked about my work, really listened instead of waiting for his turn to speak, made me feel seen in a way I hadn't felt in a long time. We dated for 8 months before he proposed, another 8 months before the wedding, small ceremony, just family and close friends, in my mama's backyard in Charlotte before she got too sick to enjoy it. She loved Marcus, told me I'd found a good one, a man who looked at me the way my daddy never looked at her, told me to hold on to him. I tried, Mama. I really did. The first year of marriage was good. We moved to Asheville for my job. Marcus said his consulting work was flexible, he could work from anywhere, and he wanted to support my career. We found the house on Montford Avenue, a small craftsman bungalow with a front porch and a backyard perfect for the garden I planned to plant. We painted walls and hung curtains and hosted dinners for new friends. We hiked the trails around the city, explored the breweries, talked about the future in that hopeful way newlyweds do. Year 2 was harder. Marcus's business wasn't doing as well as he'd claimed. The clients dried up. The income became sporadic. I was carrying most of our bills on my nonprofit salary, and the resentment started to build. His resentment that I was succeeding while he struggled. My resentment that I was working full-time and still coming home to cook dinner and clean the house while he spent hours on the couch, networking, on his phone. We started therapy in year 3. Dr. Chen, a quiet woman with an office near the river, who asked gentle questions and gave us homework about communication and quality time. Marcus went reluctantly, arms crossed, barely participating. I went desperately, taking notes, trying every technique, believing that if I just worked hard enough at the marriage, it would get better. It didn't get better. It got quieter. We stopped fighting because we stopped talking. We existed in the same space, sleeping in the same bed, sharing the same mortgage, but living separate lives that only intersected at the most surface level. And then I proposed the block party idea, and Marcus suddenly came alive again. Finally, I thought. Finally, he's engaged with something. Finally, we have a project we can work on together. God, I was naive. The weeks leading up to the party blurred together in a haze of to-do lists and text chains. Marcus threw himself into the food coordination with an energy I hadn't seen from him in months. He was on the phone constantly, laughing with vendors, negotiating prices, suggesting menu items I hadn't even thought of. He brought home samples: jerk chicken from a Jamaican spot on the south side, peach cobbler from a bakery I'd never heard of, these incredible vegan tacos that melted in your mouth. "Where'd you find all these people?" I asked one night, sitting at our small kitchen table while he showed me photos on his phone. Outside our window, the Blue Ridge Mountains caught the last of the sunset, painting everything in shades of purple and gold. "Just been networking," he said, not quite meeting my eyes. "You know how I am. I talk to people, people talk to me." That should have been my first real clue. Marcus wasn't a natural networker. He was an introvert who recharged by playing video games alone in our spare bedroom, who complained when I dragged him to my work functions, who once told me that small talk was his personal hell. But I was too grateful for the help, too buried in my own tasks, too desperate to believe that maybe we were finally finding our rhythm again. I handled the permits, the insurance, the stage rental, the sound system, the emergency protocols. I coordinated with the police for traffic control and the fire department for safety inspections. I designed the flyers and posted them around the neighborhood, in the coffee shops and the library and the community center. I created a Facebook event and an Instagram page, building buzz, sharing vendor spotlights, counting down the days. Marcus handled the food. Just the food. That was his only job. I thought it would be simple. My coworker Jasmine noticed the change in Marcus before I did. We were in the office break room one afternoon in early June, heating up leftovers, when she asked about the party planning. "How's Marcus doing with the vendor stuff?" "Great, actually. He's really stepped up." She gave me a look. That particular expression Black women perfect over years of knowing when something ain't quite right. "Stepped up how?" "He's been super involved, making calls, meeting with people, bringing home samples. It's like he's excited about something for the first time in forever." What? Nothing. Just, "You sure he's meeting with vendors? Not, like, meeting someone?" I laughed it off. "Girl, Marcus? Please. He barely leaves the house except to go to the gym." "If you say so." But that conversation planted a seed. I started paying more attention, noticing things. The way Marcus's phone was always face down now. The way he'd started dressing better, wearing cologne again, styling his hair with more care. The way he'd smile at text messages and then quickly put his phone away when I walked into the room. I told myself I was being paranoid. Marriage was hard. Trust was a choice. I couldn't let my mama's experience with my daddy, his cheating, his lies, his eventual abandonment, color my own relationship. But the seed grew roots. The Wednesday before the party, I came home from work early. My last meeting had been canceled, and I decided to surprise Marcus, maybe suggest we go out to dinner, try to reconnect before the craziness of the weekend. I parked on the street instead of in the driveway, walked up to the house with my key already out, and that's when I heard the voices. Marcus, laughing, and a woman, higher-pitched, younger-sounding, coming from inside my house. I stood on my own front porch, frozen, my hand on the doorknob, listening to my husband laugh with another woman in the home we'd built together. Every instinct screamed at me to burst through the door, to catch them, to see what was happening. But fear held me in place. Fear of what I'd find. Fear of confirming what I already knew deep down. Fear of the moment when your worst suspicions become your worst reality. I turned the knob slowly, pushed the door open quietly. The voices were coming from the kitchen. I could hear the clink of glasses, the rustle of papers, Marcus saying something about flavor profiles and customer demographics. When I walked into the kitchen, they were sitting at the table with food spread between them, samples from what looked like multiple restaurants, notes scrawled on a yellow legal pad, Marcus's laptop open to a spreadsheet, and her. She was young, maybe 23 or 24, with box braids that fell past her shoulders and a softness to her face that made her look even younger. She wore a tank top that hugged her curves, and when she stood up, I saw it, the unmistakable swell of her belly, maybe 6 or 7 months along. She was very, very pregnant. "Kendra," Marcus's voice jumped half an octave. "This is Simone. She runs that vegan taco truck I told you about. I invited her over to finalize the menu." Simone extended her hand, her smile warm and genuine. It's so nice to finally meet you. Marcus has told me so much about you and all the work you do. This block party sounds amazing. I shook her hand on autopilot, my mind spinning. She seemed nice. She seemed genuine. She looked me in the eye when she spoke, and she was pregnant with someone's baby, sitting in my kitchen with my husband, discussing food for an event I was organizing. Nice to meet you too, I heard myself say. Marcus didn't mention you were coming by. Last-minute thing, Marcus said quickly. We were texting about the menu and she was in the neighborhood, so I thought, why not just meet in person? Makes sense, I said, even though it didn't. I sat down with them, forced myself to be pleasant, to discuss taco fillings and pricing and set up logistics. The whole time I watched them. The way Marcus leaned toward her when she talked. The way his hand almost touched hers when they both reached for the same paper. The way she looked at him. Not flirtatious exactly, but comfortable. Familiar. Like they'd spent enough time together to develop inside jokes and shared references. At one point, she shifted in her chair, grimacing slightly and putting a hand on her belly. You okay? Marcus asked, concern immediate in his voice. Yeah, she's just moving around. Gets uncomfortable sometimes. How much longer? 8 weeks. Due August 10th. That's so soon. The way he said it, intimate, knowing, like he'd been counting down the days with her, made my stomach drop. I excused myself, mumbled something about needing to change out of my work clothes, and fled to the bedroom. I sat on the edge of our bed, hands shaking, trying to breathe through the panic. Maybe I was reading too much into it. Maybe Marcus was just being friendly, helpful, supportive of a pregnant woman who was working his event. Maybe the familiarity between them was just the ease that comes from working together on a project. Maybe I was going crazy. I pulled myself together, changed clothes, went back downstairs. Simone was leaving, Marcus walking her to the door, his hand hovering near her lower back in a gesture that could have been polite or could have been something else entirely. Thank you for having me, she called to me. I'm so excited for Saturday. Me too, I managed. After she left, I confronted Marcus. Sort of. I tried to anyway, but I was too afraid of the answer to ask the real question. How do you know her again? I told you. Found her truck online, reached out about the party. And you've been meeting with her? Just the two of you? Kendra, she's a vendor. We're coordinating food for your event. That's it. She seems really comfortable with you. Because we've been working together for a few weeks. We've developed a rapport. That's how professional relationships work. Is that all it is? Professional? He looked at me like I'd slapped him. Are you seriously asking me that? I'm asking because she's pregnant and you seem really invested in her pregnancy timeline, and you were practically hovering over her the whole time she was here. I was being considerate. She's 7 months pregnant and running a business. She's doing what you always say you want, working hard, building something. I thought you'd appreciate me supporting that. He turned it around on me so smoothly that I almost believed him, almost apologized for questioning him, almost let it go. But that night, after he fell asleep, I went through his phone. I know. Invasion of privacy, breach of trust, all that. But sometimes you have to break the rules to find the truth. And the truth was in his texts, his call logs, his social media messages. Simone's name appeared hundreds of times. Daily texts that started out professional, but had gradually become personal. Good morning messages, late-night check-ins, photos of food, sure, but also photos of sunsets and memes and the kind of casual content you share with someone you talk to constantly. And then I found it. The photo she'd sent him at her 20-week ultrasound. A grainy black and white image of a baby in profile, and his response, "She's beautiful, just like her mama." I sat in the dark of our bathroom, phone clutched in my hand, staring at those words until they blurred. She's beautiful, just like her mama. Not professional, not appropriate, not the words of a man who was just helping out a vendor, the words of a man who was involved. I wanted to wake him up. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw his phone against the wall and watch it shatter, but I didn't. I put the phone back on his nightstand exactly where I'd found it, climbed into bed beside him, and lay there in the dark, my mind racing through possibilities and implications, and the slow, sick realization that my marriage might already be over. I didn't sleep. I watched the sun come up through our bedroom window, watched the mountains emerge from shadow, watched Marcus wake up and stretch and kiss my forehead before heading to the shower, completely unaware that I knew. Or maybe he wasn't unaware. Maybe he knew I knew and didn't care. Maybe the whole thing was a game to him, seeing how much he could get away with, how far he could push before I broke. I went through the motions that day. Thursday, 2 days before the party. Went to work, attended meetings, responded to emails. Jasmine asked if I was okay, and I said I was just stressed about the event. She didn't believe me, I could tell, but she let it go. That evening, I did something I'm not proud of. I called Simone. I found her number in the vendor contact list I'd compiled, the one Marcus had given me weeks ago. I stepped outside onto the back porch where Marcus couldn't hear me, and I dialed. She answered on the third ring. Hello? Hi, Simone. This is Kendra Wallace from the block party. Oh, hi. Is everything okay with the event? Yeah, everything's fine. I just wanted to check in with you. Make sure you have everything you need for Saturday. Absolutely. Marcus and I finalized everything yesterday when I came by. It should all be smooth. Great. And congratulations, by the way, on the baby. Thank you. I'm so ready to not be pregnant anymore. She laughed, and it was a nice laugh, genuine and warm. Only 8 more weeks. Do you have family helping you out? Support system? My mom's in Charlotte, but we're not really speaking right now. Long story. But I've got friends. And the father... She paused. He's been really involved, actually. More than I expected. My heart pounded. That's good. Every child needs a present father. Yeah, he's been amazing, honestly. I got really lucky. I wanted to ask her outright. Is it Marcus? Is my husband your baby's father? But I couldn't form the words, couldn't force them past the lump in my throat. Well, I'm glad you have support, I said instead. See you Saturday. After I hung up, I sat on the porch steps and cried. Not loud, dramatic crying, but quiet tears that slid down my face while the evening darkened around me and the lightning bugs started their dance in the backyard. I cried for my marriage, for my trust, for the future I'd imagined that was crumbling faster than I could hold it together. Marcus found me there an hour later. Babe, you okay? I wiped my face, forced a smile. Just overwhelmed. Big day coming up. He sat next to me, put his arm around my shoulders. You've got this. You've worked so hard. It's going to be perfect. I leaned into him, let him hold me, breathed in the scent of his cologne. A new one, I realized. One I'd never smelled on him before, and wondered if this was the last time I'd let him touch me. Marcus? Yeah? Do you still love me? He pulled back to look at me, confusion on his face. Of course I do. Why would you ask that? I don't know. Things have been hard. I need to know we're okay. We're okay, Kendra, I promise. He was lying. I could hear it in his voice, see it in the way he couldn't quite hold my gaze. But I nodded anyway, let him lead me back inside, let him make dinner while I pretended everything was fine. Friday was a blur of final preparations. I took the day off work to handle last-minute details, confirming with vendors, double-checking the stage setup, making sure the sound system was properly permitted, coordinating with the neighbors about parking. Marcus was in and out all day, supposedly handling food vendor things, but I didn't ask questions. Didn't have the energy for more lies. Jasmine came by in the evening to help me load supplies into my car. Tables, tablecloths, decorations, emergency supplies. We worked in silence for a while before she finally said what she'd been holding back. You want to tell me what's really going on? What do you mean? Girl, I've known you for 3 years. You've been off all week. So either tell me what's wrong or tell me you don't want to talk about it, but don't lie to me. I set down the box I was carrying, leaned against my car, looked at my friend. I think Marcus is having an affair. With who? The taco truck girl? Simone? The pregnant one? Yeah. Kendra. I know how it sounds, but the way they are together, the texts I saw on his phone, the way he talks about her pregnancy like he's invested in it. Did you ask him? He denied it. Said I was being paranoid. Jasmine was quiet for a long moment. Then, what are you going to do? I don't know. Get through tomorrow, I guess, then figure out the rest. You want me to keep an eye on them tomorrow, at the party? Would you? Of course. That's what friends are for. She hugged me then, hard and long, and I let myself be held, let myself be weak for just a moment before I had to be strong again. That night, Marcus tried to initiate sex. I couldn't do it. Claimed I was too tired, too stressed, needed to sleep before the big day. He seemed disappointed but didn't push, just rolled over and went to sleep while I lay awake beside him, staring at the ceiling, counting down the hours until I'd know the truth one way or another. Saturday arrived with perfect weather, 78 degrees, blue sky, just enough breeze to keep things comfortable. I woke up at 5:30, too anxious to sleep, and started going through my checklists. The rental company would deliver the stage at 8. The sound guy would arrive at 9. Vendors had been told to set up between 10 and 11:30, with the party officially starting at noon. Marcus was still asleep when I left our house at 6:45, my arms full of boxes containing decorations, signs, and emergency supplies. I'd recruited a handful of volunteers, neighbors who'd caught the vision, co-workers who believed in community building, friends from my college days at UNC Asheville who still lived in the area. Together, we started transforming 3 blocks of Montford Avenue into something magical. We strung lights between trees and lampposts, fairy lights that would twinkle when evening came. We set up tables with African print tablecloths my aunt had shipped from Atlanta, vibrant patterns in orange and yellow and deep purple. We positioned trash cans and recycling bins at strategic intervals. We marked out spaces for vendors, for the DJ booth, for a kids' play area with sidewalk chalk and bubbles and hula hoops. We put up a banner that read, Montford Avenue Block Party, in bold letters, my name listed at the bottom as the organizer. The stage arrived right on time, a small platform with a canopy for shade. The sound guy, a white dude named Tyler with impressive dreadlocks and a calm competence, set up speakers and microphones and did sound checks that echoed down the empty street. My neighbor, Mr. Patterson, who'd lived on Montford for 47 years, came out with his wife to watch the setup, both of them grinning like kids. "This is wonderful, Kendra," Mrs. Patterson said. She was 73, with silver hair styled in an elegant updo, and the kind of regal bearing that made everyone call her Mrs. Patterson instead of her first name, Dorothy. "We haven't had a real block party since the 80s. This neighborhood needed this. Thank you for supporting it," I said, "and for helping spread the word." "Child, are you kidding? We've been telling everyone who'll listen. This is what community looks like." By 10:30, vendors started rolling in. The Jamaican spot Marcus had found, a truck painted in red, gold, and green, with Bob Marley's face on the side and the smell of jerk seasoning already making my mouth water. A soul food operation run by a grandmother everyone called Miss Opal, who'd been cooking for church functions and family reunions for 50 years before she finally got her food truck 2 years ago. A snow cone cart operated by a young Latino man who introduced himself as Carlos and immediately started joking with the kids who'd appeared from nowhere. A lemonade stand run by 2 entrepreneurial teenage girls from the neighborhood, sisters named Kennedy and Kyla, who'd made signs advertising the best lemonade in Asheville, with prices ranging from $2 to $5 depending on size. There were non-food vendors, too. A jewelry maker named Diane who specialized in Afrocentric designs. A woman named Tasha selling vintage clothes and accessories from the 60s through the 90s. A table for voter registration that my office had sponsored. A booth for a local nonprofit that helped formerly incarcerated people find employment. A face painting station run by an art student from Warren Wilson College. The neighborhood was coming alive, transforming from quiet residential street to vibrant community space. And I'd made this happen. 6 months of planning, countless hours of work, and here it was, actually happening. If only I could enjoy it. At 11:15, Simone's vegan taco truck pulled up, bright orange with cartoon avocados painted on the sides and the words "Planted Love" in cheerful green script. And Marcus was with her, not arriving separately, not waving from a distance, but climbing out of the passenger seat of her truck like he'd been there all along, like he'd ridden with her to the event, like he'd started his day with her instead of me. They were laughing about something, easy and comfortable, and he helped her step down from the high cab with a gentleness I hadn't seen him direct at me in months. His hand lingered on her elbow. She looked up at him with something I recognized, because I used to look at him that way too. Trust, affection, the kind of comfort that comes from intimacy. And that's when I saw it. Really saw it. The way he touched her wasn't professional. The way she leaned into him wasn't casual. And when she stretched, arching her back to ease the weight of her belly, Marcus's hand moved instinctively to support her, splaying across her lower back with the familiarity of repetition. That wasn't a business relationship. That was a man caring for a woman he knew intimately. That was a man who'd touched that body before, in other contexts, in other ways. Jasmine appeared at my elbow. "Girl, is that Marcus?" "Yeah." "Why is he all up on that pregnant girl like that?" "He's been coordinating with her. For the food." Jasmine cut her eyes at me. That look Black women give each other when we both know something ain't right, but only one of us is ready to say it out loud. That ain't coordinating. That's something else entirely." I couldn't respond, couldn't form words. I just watched as Marcus helped Simone set up her truck, plugging in equipment, arranging supplies, working together with the ease of a practiced team. He wasn't helping any of the other vendors, just her. And when he pulled out a bottle of water and handed it to her, reminding her to stay hydrated, I knew. I knew. My coworker Devin, who'd come to help with setup, noticed me staring. You good, Kendra? Fine. You don't look fine. I said I'm fine, but I wasn't fine. I was watching my marriage implode in slow motion, and I couldn't look away. The thing about betrayal is that your body knows before your mind accepts it. My hands were shaking. My heart was racing. My stomach was doing that flip-flop thing that happens right before you throw up. Every cell in my body was screaming that something was wrong, but my mind was still trying to find alternative explanations. Maybe they were just friends. Maybe I was overreacting. Maybe Marcus was naturally affectionate and I was reading too much into innocent gestures. But then Simone laughed at something he said and touched his arm, letting her hand rest there for a beat too long, and Marcus covered her hand with his own, and there was no mistaking what I was seeing. Jasmine grabbed my hand. Come on, let's go check on the DJ. She pulled me away before I could do something I'd regret. We walked to the other end of the blocked-off street where Tyler was still adjusting sound levels, and Jasmine positioned us with our backs to the vendors. Breathe, she said. I'm breathing. No, you're hyperventilating. Breathe for real. In through your nose, out through your mouth. I tried. Failed. Tried again. Eventually, my breathing steadied. You want me to go ask him what's going on? Jasmine asked. No, not yet. I need proof. Girl, what you just saw is proof. I need him to admit it. Or her. Or both of them. I need it to be undeniable so he can't gaslight me later. Okay, then we wait. We watch. And when the moment comes, we handle it. We? You think I'm letting you face this alone? Please. I hugged her, this woman who'd been my friend for 3 years but felt like family. Thank you. That's what Black women do. We hold each other up. The party started at noon with me at the microphone, giving opening remarks that I'd practiced in front of my mirror a dozen times. I thanked everyone for coming, celebrated our neighborhood, talked about community and connection, and the power of breaking bread together. I acknowledged the vendors and volunteers and city officials who'd made this possible. I kept my voice steady, my smile bright, even though my husband was standing 20 feet away next to the woman who was probably carrying his child. People clapped and cheered, and the DJ dropped his first song, Frankie Beverly and Maze, Before I Let Go. And just like that, the party was alive. Kids ran through the street, their laughter mixing with the music. Parents settled into lawn chairs they'd brought from home, calling greetings to neighbors they usually only waved at. Mr. and Mrs. Patterson started dancing, and other older couples joined them, showing the younger generation how it was done. The teenage girls at the lemonade stand did brisk business. The face painter had a line of kids waiting for butterflies and superheroes on their cheeks. The food vendors were slammed. Miss Opal's soul food line stretched down the block, people waiting for her fried chicken, mac and cheese, collard greens, candied yams. The Jamaican truck wasn't far behind, the smell of jerk seasoning and fried plantains drawing a crowd. Carlos's snow cones were a hit in the afternoon heat, and Simone's vegan taco truck? Packed. Completely packed, with Marcus right there helping serve, taking orders, handling money, playing the role of supportive partner so convincingly that anyone watching would assume that's exactly what he was. I worked the event, moving from vendor to vendor, checking in, solving problems, greeting neighbors and strangers. The voter registration table needed more pens. The jewelry vendor's tent was wobbling and needed reinforcement. A kid skinned his knee and needed a Band-Aid from my first aid kit. An elderly man needed help finding a chair. 2 dogs got into a scuffle and I had to separate their owners. I was everywhere, doing everything, being the organizer whose name was on the permit and the banner and all the promotional materials. But I wasn't enjoying it, couldn't enjoy it, because every time I looked up, I saw Marcus and Simone, and the truth of what I was seeing became harder and harder to deny. Around 2 p.m., things escalated. I was helping Miss Opal refill her propane tank when I saw an older Black woman approach Simone's truck. She was maybe late 50s, early 60s, dressed in church clothes even though it was Saturday afternoon, a floral dress and sensible heels and a hat with a small feather. She walked right up to the truck, looked at Simone, looked at Marcus, and her face went hard. "I know you," she said, loud enough that people nearby stopped their conversations. Marcus turned, and I saw something flash across his face. Fear. "Ma'am," he said. "Don't ma'am me." You're the man who's been staying at that girl's apartment, building next to mine. I've seen your car there. Overnight. Multiple times. The world tilted. The music became distorted. I dropped what I was doing and started walking toward the truck, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it over the DJ. I think you're mistaken, Marcus said, but his voice was shaking. I'm not mistaken. I know what I saw, and somebody needs to tell that girl. She looked around, scanning the crowd. Where's the organizer? Where's Kendra? I'm right here, I said, arriving at the truck. The woman turned to me and her face softened. Oh, honey, are you the wife? Yes. Then you should know your husband has been playing house with this pregnant girl for months. I'm not one to get in people's business, but this is wrong. This is disrespectful. And somebody needed to tell you. Time stopped. Every sound faded. Every person in my peripheral vision became a blur. There was only this woman, this truth teller, this stranger who'd done what I'd been too afraid to do. Marcus grabbed my arm. Kendra, this is a misunderstanding. Let's talk privately. I yanked away from him. Don't touch me. You're making a scene? I'm making a scene? My voice rose and I didn't care. I'm making a scene? People were gathering now. The music had stopped, or maybe I just couldn't hear it anymore. Jasmine was suddenly there, and Devin and Mr. Patterson, all of them forming a protective circle around me. Is it true? I asked Simone. Has he been staying at your apartment? She was crying, mascara running down her face, one hand on her pregnant belly. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know about you. How could you not know? He said he was divorced. He said his ex-wife was vindictive and he couldn't talk about her. He said, her voice broke. He said so many things. I looked at Marcus, really looked at him, at the man I'd married, the man I'd trusted, the man I'd built a life with. Is that your baby? The question hung in the air. Everyone heard it. Everyone waited. Marcus's mouth opened, closed. His eyes darted around, looking for an escape that didn't exist. Is that your baby? I asked again, louder this time. It's complicated. It's a yes or no question, Marcus. Is that your baby? Yes. The word landed like a physical blow. I actually stumbled backward and Jasmine caught me. How long? I heard myself ask. Kendra, how long have you been sleeping with her? 8 months. 8 months. Our entire 3rd year of marriage. Every therapy session where he promised to do better. Every night I'd lain awake wondering what I was doing wrong. Every time I'd questioned my worth, my desirability, my ability to keep my husband interested. All of it, while he was building a whole separate life with someone else. And the baby? She's due in August. Were you ever going to tell me? He didn't answer. Couldn't answer, probably, because the truth was he never planned to tell me. He was going to keep living this double life, keep lying to both of us, keep taking from me while giving everything to her. The rage that had been building finally broke through. Get out. Kendra, please, can we just talk? Get out of my event. Get out of my neighborhood. Get out of my life. You can't just... I can do whatever I want. This is my event. My permit. You're listed as secondary contact under my name, which means you're here as my guest, and I'm uninviting you. I pulled out my phone, pulled up the permit documentation I kept in my email for easy reference. See? Primary organizer, Kendra Wallace. Secondary contact, Marcus Wallace. Your permission to be here comes from me, and I'm revoking it. That's not how this works. Watch me. Mr. Patterson stepped forward, all 6 feet and 200 pounds of him. Son, the lady asked you to leave. Devin moved to stand next to him. So did 2 other men from the neighborhood I didn't know well but recognized from my planning meetings. Marcus looked at Simone, desperate now. Simone? Don't, she said, her voice wrecked. Just go. You've done enough. And he did. He looked at me one last time, something like regret in his eyes, and then he walked away. Through the crowd that parted for him in silence. Down the street that I'd spent months planning this party for. Around the corner and out of sight. The silence after he left was crushing. Everyone was staring at me, pitying me, judging me, treating me like entertainment. This was my nightmare. The thing I'd feared most. Public humiliation, failure, exposure. And then Mrs. Patterson started clapping. It was slow at first, just her hands coming together with that particular rhythm that means something in Black churches. Then Mr. Patterson joined her. Then Miss Opal from the soul food truck. Then Jasmine. Then Devin. Then the whole crowd. A wave of applause and cheers, and That's right, sister, and good for you that washed over me like baptism. You handled that with grace, Mrs. Patterson said, pulling me into a hug that smelled like cocoa butter and peppermint. We got you, a voice called from the crowd. Let's keep this party going, someone else yelled. I turned to Simone, who was still crying, still holding her belly like she could protect the baby from this mess. And I remembered being 23, remembered thinking I knew everything, remembered the invincibility of youth that makes you trust people you shouldn't. How far along are you? I asked. 32 weeks. You need to sit down. Stress isn't good for the baby. I don't understand why you're being nice to me. Because he lied to both of us. Come on. I led her to a chair in the shade, brought her water and a plate of food that she didn't touch. The woman who'd exposed everything, Patricia, I'd learn later, stayed with her while I tried to figure out what to do next. Because the party had to go on. I hadn't put 6 months of work and my professional reputation on the line just to let Marcus's betrayal destroy it all. So I went back to the microphone, back to the DJ booth, back to being the organizer. Y'all, I said, and my voice came out stronger than I felt. First, I want to thank you for being here today, and I especially want to thank you for that support just now. That's what community means. Having each other's backs even when things get messy. Applause, cheers, a few amens from the older folks. Now, we've got 6 more hours of this party left, and I don't know about you, but I'm not letting any man ruin my good time. So let's dance. Let's eat. Let's celebrate this neighborhood and each other. I looked directly at the crowd gathering by their phones, the ones who'd probably been recording the whole thing. And if you're watching this on YouTube later, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, because clearly I've got more story to tell than I ever planned on. The DJ, bless Tyler, dropped a beat before I could second-guess myself. Earth, Wind and Fire, September. And just like that, the party came back to life. People danced. Kids played. The smell of jerk chicken and peach cobbler and tacos filled the air, and I stood in the middle of it all, heartbroken and humiliated, and somehow still standing. The next few hours passed in a strange mixture of euphoria and devastation. The party was actually better after Marcus left. The energy lifted. People who'd been hesitant to fully enjoy themselves because of the tension now let loose. The dancing got wilder. The conversations got deeper. The sense of community I'd been trying to cultivate actually happened, just not in the way I'd imagined. Vendors I'd never met sought me out to tell me I was brave. Neighbors brought me plates of food and made sure I was eating. Kids gave me pictures they'd drawn with the sidewalk chalk. Mrs. Patterson didn't leave my side for 2 hours, a protective grandmother energy that made me miss my mama so much I could barely breathe. And Simone? She stayed. After the initial shock wore off, after Patricia helped her process what had happened, she stayed and served tacos from her truck. Because she had a business to run and bills to pay and a baby on the way, and Marcus's betrayal didn't change any of that. Around 4 p.m., after things had calmed down a bit, I found myself sitting on a curb with Simone, both of us holding snow cones that Carlos had insisted were on the house. I really didn't know, she said again. He showed me pictures of you. Said you were his ex-wife. Said the divorce was finalized last year. He seemed so genuine. He's good at that, being genuine. That's how he got me too. When did you know that something was wrong? When I saw you in my house Wednesday. The way he looked at you, touched you. I've been married to him for 3 years. I know the difference between professional and personal. I'm so sorry. Stop apologizing. You didn't do anything wrong. He lied to both of us. She picked at her snow cone, red syrup staining her fingers. What are you going to do? Divorce him, keep my house, move on with my life. And the baby? That's between you and him. I want nothing to do with it. I said it harshly, more harshly than I meant to, and I saw her flinch. But it was true. I couldn't be involved in Marcus's baby, in his new life, in whatever co-parenting arrangement they worked out. I had to protect myself. Can I ask you something? Simone said after a long silence. Sure. Do you think people can change? Like, really change? I thought about Marcus, about our therapy sessions and his promises and the way he'd look me in the eye and swear he was committed to our marriage while he was sleeping with someone else. I think people can change, I said slowly, but only if they want to, and only if they're willing to do the hard work. Marcus isn't going to change. He's going to tell you he will, and he's going to seem sincere, and you're going to want to believe him because you're having his baby and you want your daughter to have a father. But he won't change. Not really. How do you know? Because he never changed for me. Why would he change for you? It was brutal, but she needed to hear it. She needed to go into single motherhood with her eyes open, with realistic expectations, with the understanding that Marcus was who he was. Patricia came over then, the woman who'd started this whole revelation. You two doing okay? As okay as we can be, I said. Good, because I wanted to apologize for causing a scene. I probably should have pulled you aside privately, but when I saw him there, acting like he had every right to be at your event, helping his pregnant girlfriend while his wife was working so hard, I just couldn't stay quiet. Don't apologize, I said. You did me a favor, ripped off the Band-Aid. I needed to know. Still, I'm sure it wasn't how you wanted to find out. Is there ever a good way to find out your husband is a cheating liar? She laughed at that, a sharp bark of sound. Fair point. Patricia was a retired teacher, I learned. 62 years old, widowed for 5 years, living alone in the apartment building next to Simone's. She'd noticed Marcus's car there back in November, started paying attention because she always paid attention to the comings and goings in her neighborhood. When the visits became regular, when she saw him leaving in the early morning, when Simone started showing and Marcus started touching her belly in the parking lot, Patricia knew something was off. I tried to mind my business, she said, but then I saw him here today, saw your name on the banner, did the math, and I thought, if that was me, I'd want someone to tell me. Thank you, I said, and meant it. I'm Kendra, by the way. Kendra Wallace. Patricia Johnson. And you handled yourself beautifully up there. That kind of composure under pressure? Not everyone has that. The party continued until 9 p.m. as planned. The sun set behind the mountains, the string lights came on, and the whole street glowed with warmth and music and the kind of magic that happens when people come together. The DJ shifted to slower jams as families with young kids started heading home. Teenagers claimed the street for dancing. The older folks settled into deeper conversations in the lawn chairs scattered around. At 8:30, I gave my closing remarks. Thanked the vendors and volunteers and neighbors. Announced that we'd collected enough from booth fees to donate $500 to the local food bank. Invited everyone to next year's party because, yes, there would be a next year. I wasn't letting Marcus take this from me. And one more thing, I added, looking out at the crowd of faces. Today reminded me what community really means. It's not just showing up for the good times, it's showing up for each other even when things get messy, especially when things get messy. So thank you for being here, for having my back, for showing me what this neighborhood can be. The applause was thunderous, and when I stepped away from the microphone, I felt something I hadn't felt in months: hope. Cleanup took another hour. Volunteers helped break down tables, collect trash, take down lights. The vendors packed up their equipment and thanked me for the event. Simone left around 9:30, driven home by Patricia, who'd apparently appointed herself the girl's temporary guardian. Before she went, Simone pressed a piece of paper into my hand with her number on it. I don't expect us to be friends, she said, but if you ever want to talk, or if there's anything you need to know about what happened between us, I'll tell you the truth. I owe you that much. I took the number, folded it, put it in my pocket. Take care of yourself, and that baby. I will. And Kendra, for what it's worth, I think he's an idiot for cheating on you. By 10 p.m., Montford Avenue was back to normal. The street reopened to traffic. The only evidence of the day was the chalk drawing still visible on the asphalt, and the full feeling in the air that comes after something meaningful has happened. Jasmine and Devin helped me load the last of my supplies into my car. You coming home with me tonight? Jasmine offered. You shouldn't be alone. I won't be alone. I'll be in my house. My house that I'm not letting him take from me. You sure? I'm sure. Devin gave me a hug. You're stronger than you know, Kendra. I don't feel strong. Nobody does when they're going through it. But you'll look back on today and realize you were a warrior. After they left, I sat on my front porch steps, exhausted in every way a person can be exhausted. My phone had been buzzing for hours, calls and texts from Marcus that I'd ignored. Now, in the quiet, I finally looked at them. 37 texts, 14 missed calls. The messages ranged from apologetic to angry to pleading to manipulative. I'm so sorry. You humiliated me in front of everyone. Can we please talk about this? You don't understand what it's been like being married to you. I made a mistake. You never appreciated me. I love you. Where are you? Please come home. This is your fault too. I'm staying at a hotel if you want to talk. You can't just kick me out of my own house. On and on and on. Lies and manipulation wrapped in apologies. The same patterns, the same tactics, the same Marcus who'd gotten me to marry him in the first place. I deleted every message without responding, blocked his number, and then I called a locksmith. He arrived at 11:30, a tired-looking white man in his 50s who didn't ask questions, just changed every lock on every door of my house. When he left, I had new keys and the bone-deep satisfaction of knowing Marcus couldn't just walk back into my life whenever he felt like it. I spent that night in my bed now, not ours, unable to sleep, replaying the day. The look on Marcus's face when Patricia exposed him. The feel of the crowd's support when Mrs. Patterson started clapping. The weight of Simone's belly when I'd helped her to that chair. The sound of my own voice, stronger than I felt, telling Marcus to leave. I'd done that. Me. I'd stood up for myself in the most public, most humiliating circumstances possible, and I'd survived. Around 3 a.m., when sleep still wouldn't come, I started making lists. Mental lists at first, then actual ones on my phone. Things to do: call divorce lawyer, change bank accounts, document everything, get tested for STDs, talk to therapist, tell my family, process this grief, things I want, peace, self-respect, a life that's mine, to never feel this stupid again, things I know for sure, Marcus won't change, this marriage is over, I deserve better, I'm going to survive this. Sunday morning arrived gray and drizzly, the mountains hidden behind clouds. I got up at 7, made coffee, and started going through Marcus's things. Every piece of clothing, every toiletry, every item that was his went into garbage bags. I worked methodically, emotionally detached, like I was cleaning out a stranger's belongings. His cologne bottles? Trash. His gym bag? Trash. His PlayStation and games? Actually, no, I kept those. He didn't deserve to have fun while I was dealing with this mess. Around 9, someone knocked on my door. I looked through the peephole to see Marcus standing there, looking exhausted and defeated. Kendra, please open the door. I didn't respond. Kendra, I know you're in there. Your car is in the driveway. We need to talk. No, we don't. I'm your husband. Not for long. I opened the door but kept the chain on. Through the gap, I could see his face, red-rimmed eyes, stubble he hadn't shaved, wearing the same clothes from yesterday. Your things are in garbage bags on the back porch. Take them and leave. This is my house too. Actually, it's not. My name is on the deed. We bought it with money I saved before we got married. You contributed exactly nothing to the down payment. That was stretching the truth. We'd both contributed to the down payment, though I'd put down 60% to his 40. But I was angry and hurt, and I wanted him to feel like he'd lost something. We're married. That makes it community property. We'll let the lawyers figure that out. For now, take your stuff and go. Kendra, please. Can we just talk? I know I messed up. Messed up? I laughed, harsh and bitter. You didn't mess up. You cheated on me for 8 months. You got another woman pregnant. You lied to me, to her, to our therapist, to everyone. That's not a mess up. That's a choice. Multiple choices. I made a mistake. Stop calling it a mistake. Forgetting to buy milk is a mistake. Leaving the oven on is a mistake. Having an 8-month affair that results in a baby is not a mistake. His face crumpled. He started crying and I felt nothing. No sympathy, no softening, nothing but cold clarity. I love you, he said. No, you don't. You love what I did for you. You love having someone take care of you while you do whatever you want. You love the stability and the house and the respectability. But me? You don't love me. You don't even respect me. That's not true. Yes, it is. If you loved me, you wouldn't have touched her. If you respected me, you wouldn't have brought her to my event. Now get your stuff and go before I call the police. He stood there for another minute, maybe hoping I'd break, maybe just processing that this was really happening. Then he nodded, walked away, and I closed the door. I watched from the window as he loaded garbage bags into his car. He looked up at the house once, maybe hoping I'd run out and tell him I'd changed my mind. I didn't. I just watched him drive away, and then I locked the door, sat on the floor of my living room, and cried. I cried for the marriage I'd wanted but never really had. I cried for the trust that was broken beyond repair. I cried for the future I'd imagined, kids, family vacations, growing old together, that was never going to happen. I cried for my younger self who'd believed Marcus when he promised to love me forever. I cried for my mama, who'd been so happy at my wedding, who died thinking I was settled and safe. And then when the tears finally stopped, I got up, washed my face, and called a divorce lawyer. Her name was Patricia Okoye, and she came highly recommended by Jasmine, who'd gone through her own divorce 3 years earlier. She could see me Monday afternoon, her receptionist said, and I should bring any financial documents I had: bank statements, tax returns, the deed to the house, retirement account statements. I spent the rest of Sunday gathering paperwork. Every document that proved my financial independence, my contributions to our life together, my right to keep what was mine. The house paperwork showed I'd put down more of the down payment. The bank statements showed I'd been paying most of the bills. The retirement account was all mine. I'd started it before we got married. Marcus had been living off me for 3 years, I realized, contributing just enough to look like a partner while actually being a dependent. And I'd let him, because I'd wanted the marriage to work, because I'd been taught that good women support their men, because I'd believed his lies about his business picking up soon. Never again. Never again would I let a man take from me without giving back. Never again would I prioritize someone else's comfort over my own truth. Never again would I ignore the warning signs, because acknowledging them would mean admitting failure. Monday morning, I went to work. I thought about calling in sick, but hiding felt like letting Marcus win. So I showed up, answered emails, attended meetings, pretended I was fine. Jasmine took one look at me and pulled me into the break room. "How are you really doing?" "I don't know. Numb, mostly." "Have you talked to him?" "He came by yesterday. I told him to take his stuff and leave." "Good. I have a lawyer meeting this afternoon." "You want me to come with you?" "No. I need to do this alone. But thank you." She hugged me hard. "You're going to get through this." "I know. I just don't want to." "Nobody does, but you will, and you'll come out stronger." The meeting with Patricia Okoye was both empowering and devastating. She was Nigerian, maybe 50, with silver locks and sharp eyes that missed nothing. She listened to my story without interrupting, took detailed notes, and then leaned back in her leather chair. "You have a strong case," she said, her accent still carrying traces of Lagos despite decades in America. "The adultery is well documented, multiple witnesses, public exposure. The house was purchased primarily with your money. You're the primary income earner. His consulting business is sporadic at best. You'll keep the house, most likely. He may try to claim spousal support, but given the circumstances, I doubt any judge would award it. What about the baby? Not your responsibility. He'll owe child support to the mother, but that doesn't affect your settlement. In fact, his child support obligation will factor into any claims he makes against you. How long will this take? In North Carolina, there's a mandatory 1-year separation period before divorce can be finalized. However, we can file for separation immediately and work out property division and financial matters in the meantime. If he contests it, we'll fight. But based on what you've told me, I think he'll be smart enough to settle. A year. 12 more months of being legally tied to Marcus. But I nodded, signed the retainer agreement, wrote a check I couldn't really afford, and walked out of her office feeling both lighter and heavier than I'd felt in days. That afternoon, Patricia's office served Marcus with separation papers. He called me 17 times in 2 hours. I didn't answer. Eventually he texted, "We need to talk about this. You're being unreasonable." I blocked his number again. The next few days were strange. I went to work, came home, existed in a fog of grief and rage and exhaustion. Neighbors checked on me. Mrs. Patterson with plates of food, Sarah and David with offers of company, even teenagers from the block asking if I needed my lawn mowed or my car washed. The video of the confrontation at the block party had gone viral in local circles. Someone had recorded the whole thing and posted it on Facebook, and it had been shared hundreds of times. I was that woman who kicked her cheating husband out at her own event, and apparently I was goals and an inspiration and #queen. I hated it. I hated being public entertainment. I hated that the worst moment of my life was online for anyone to watch and comment on, but I also couldn't deny that the support was real. Messages from women I'd never met, sharing their own stories of betrayal and survival, offers of help from local businesses, even a reporter from the Citizen Times asking for an interview, which I declined. On Thursday, Simone called. "I hope it's okay that I'm reaching out," she said. I wanted to check on you. I'm alive. I saw the video. Everyone's seen the video. Great. I'm so sorry, Kendra, for all of this. I keep thinking if I'd just asked more questions, demanded to meet you, looked him up online. Stop. He's good at lying. That's not your fault. It feels like my fault. Well, it's not. It's his fault. Only his. She was quiet for a moment. Then, "Can I ask you something?" Sure. Do you hate me? Did I? I'd spent the last 5 days trying to figure that out. Simone was young, pregnant, lied to. She was a victim of Marcus's lies just like I was. But she was also the woman my husband had been sleeping with, the woman carrying his baby, the physical evidence of his betrayal. I don't hate you, I said finally. But I can't be your friend either. Does that make sense? Yeah, it does. How are you doing? With the pregnancy? Tired, scared. The baby's moving a lot, which the doctor says is good, but it's also constant and uncomfortable. And I'm trying to figure out what to do about Marcus. He's been texting me, saying he wants to be involved, wants to help with the baby. But after seeing how he treated you, don't trust him, I said. I mean, if you want him in the baby's life, that's your choice. But don't trust him with your heart. Don't believe his promises. Don't think he's going to change. He won't. That's what Patricia said too. Patricia's right. We're both right. He is who he is. After I hung up, I felt something shift. Not forgiveness exactly, but maybe the beginning of acceptance. This had happened. My marriage was over. Marcus had betrayed me in the worst way possible, and somehow I was going to survive it. I started therapy the following week. Dr. Martinez, a Latina woman in her 40s who specialized in trauma and betrayal, listened to my story and then asked the question that broke me open. What did you lose when you lost your marriage? I started listing the obvious things: my husband, my future, my sense of security. But Dr. Martinez pushed deeper. What else? My trust. In him. In myself. In my ability to read people. What else? My mama's vision for me. She wanted me to be married, settled, have the family she never got to have. And I failed. Did you fail? Or did Marcus fail? He failed. But I chose him. I married him. I didn't see the signs. What signs could you have seen 3 years ago that would have told you he'd cheat in year 3? I couldn't answer that. Because the truth was, Marcus had been a good partner for the first 2 years. Or at least good enough that I hadn't seen anything concerning. The deterioration had been gradual, subtle, easy to attribute to stress or work or the normal ups and downs of marriage. You didn't fail, Kendra. Dr. Martinez said gently. You were betrayed. There's a difference. I cried through the rest of that session. Big, ugly sobs that came from somewhere deep in my chest. Dr. Martinez handed me tissues and sat quietly while I fell apart, and when I finally pulled myself together, she said something that stuck with me. Grief is love with nowhere to go. You loved your marriage, your husband, your future together, and now all that love has nowhere to land. So it turns into grief. Let yourself feel it. Don't rush through it. You've earned this grief. I'd earned this grief. What a strange way to think about it. But also what a permission-giving way to think about it. I didn't have to be strong all the time. I didn't have to perform recovery. I could sit in the pain and let it be what it was. June turned into July. The mountains stayed green, the tourists clogged the streets, and life continued whether I was ready for it or not. I went to work, saw my therapist, had weekly dinners with Jasmine, avoided anywhere I might run into Marcus. Patricia Okoye was working on the separation agreement. Marcus's lawyer, some overpriced white man in a suit too expensive for this case, kept trying to claim Marcus deserved half of everything. Half the house, half my retirement account, half my car. Patricia shut down every claim with documentation and legal precedent and what she called controlled fury. He's not going to win, she told me in late July. His case is garbage, but he's going to drag this out as long as possible, try to make you suffer. So what do? We bury him in paperwork. We make this so expensive and emotionally exhausting that he begs to settle. And we document everything. Every lie, every attempt at manipulation, every time he violates the separation agreement. How is he violating it? He drove by your house 3 times last week. Your neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, documented it and sent me the times and photos. Mrs. Patterson was turning into my guardian angel. She'd taken it upon herself to watch my house, document Marcus's attempts to contact me, even chase him away once when he'd tried to come to my door. At 73, she was fiercer than any security system. In mid-August, Simone called from the hospital. She was in labor, alone, terrified. Marcus had promised to be there but hadn't shown up. Her mother was still not speaking to her, and she'd thought of me. I know I have no right to ask, she said between contractions, her voice tight with pain, but I don't have anyone else, and I'm scared. I should have said no. I should have protected myself, maintained boundaries, Let her face the consequences of trusting Marcus. But I thought about my mama laboring alone in a Charlotte hospital while my daddy was God knows where. I thought about how I'd want someone to show up for me if I were scared and alone. So I went. Mission Hospital at 2 in the morning was quiet except for the labor and delivery floor, which hummed with the particular energy of new life arriving. I found Simone's room easily. She'd texted me the number, and when I walked in, she looked up with such relief that I almost started crying. "You came." "I came. Thank you. Thank you so much." I pulled a chair next to her bed. "How far apart are the contractions?" 4 minutes. "They're getting stronger." "I'm scared, Kendra. I don't know how to do this. Nobody knows how to do it until they do it. But you're strong. You're going to be fine." I held her hand through the next contraction, helping her breathe through the pain, the way my mama had described doing when I was born. When it passed, she looked at me with tears streaming down her face. "I'm so sorry. For everything. I know I keep saying that, but I need you to know I mean it. I know you do. And I forgive you." The words surprised me as much as they surprised her. I hadn't planned to forgive her, hadn't even realized I was ready to. But sitting there, watching this young woman about to become a mother, I found that the anger had faded into something softer. "You forgive me? You were lied to. You thought he was available. You didn't know about me. That's not your fault. But I should have—" "Stop. There's no should have. There's only what happened. And what happens next. And what happens next is you're going to have this baby and be a good mother and build a good life." The labor lasted 14 hours. I stayed for all of it, holding Simone's hand, wiping her face, helping her breathe, calling for the nurse when contractions became unbearable. I watched her body do what women's bodies have been doing since the beginning of time, opening, stretching, bringing forth life. And when that baby girl finally emerged at 4:17 p.m., screaming her arrival with healthy lungs, I cried along with Simone. "She's perfect," the doctor said, laying the baby on Simone's chest. 6 pounds, 3 ounces, 10 fingers, 10 toes. Beautiful. Simone was sobbing and laughing at the same time, holding her daughter with trembling hands. "Hi, baby. Hi, Naomi. I'm your mama. I'm your mama. Naomi." It meant pleasant. I wanted her to have something good, Simone had told me weeks ago. Something that isn't about him. I stayed while Simone got cleaned up, while the nurses did their checks and measurements, while they helped with the first feeding. I took photos on Simone's phone for her to send to friends. I texted Patricia to let her know the baby had arrived safely. And then Marcus showed up. He burst into the room at 6 p.m., holding balloons and wearing guilt like a cologne. He stopped short when he saw me sitting in the corner chair. "What are you doing here?" "What I should do. Being here for someone who needed support." "You have no right." "I have every right. Simone asked me to come. You, apparently, were too busy to show up for the birth of your daughter." He looked at Naomi, sleeping in Simone's arms, and something shifted in his face. Love, fear, regret, wonder, all of it washing over him at once. "Can I hold her?" he asked Simone. Simone looked at me and I nodded. This was her choice, her baby, her relationship with Marcus to navigate. She passed Naomi to him, and I watched him cradle his daughter for the first time, watched tears roll down his face, watched him whisper, "I'm so sorry. I'm going to do better, I promise." Empty promises. The same ones he'd made to me, to Simone, probably to every woman he'd ever hurt. But Naomi didn't know that yet. She just knew her father's heartbeat, his warmth, the sound of his voice. "I'm going to go," I said quietly. Simone reached for my hand. "Thank you. For everything. Take care of yourself, both of you." I left them there, Marcus, Simone, and Naomi, to figure out their complicated future. My part in their story was done. Driving home through Asheville as the sun set behind the mountains, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Not quite peace, not quite happiness, but maybe the beginning of both. I'd survived the worst day of my life at the block party. I'd survived the weeks of grief and rage afterward. And I'd just spent 14 hours helping my husband's mistress give birth to his child without losing my mind. If I could do all that, what couldn't I do? September brought the psychological sense of new beginnings that comes with fall, even in North Carolina, where summer held on stubbornly through October. I threw myself into work, planning a health fair, organizing vaccination clinics, building partnerships with local churches. My colleagues rallied around me, giving me the best projects, understanding when I needed a mental health day, celebrating small victories with me like they were major accomplishments. Jasmine became more than a coworker. She became my sister in every way that mattered. We had standing Tuesday dinner dates where we'd try new restaurants and talk about everything except Marcus. She introduced me to her book club, a group of Black women ranging from 25 to 60, who met monthly to discuss literature and life. They welcomed me without prying, shared their own stories of heartbreak and survival, made space for my grief without making it the center of attention. Mrs. Patterson continued her unofficial role as my neighborhood protector. She'd appear on my porch with Tupperware containers of food, collard greens, cornbread, fried chicken, peach cobbler, always with the excuse that she'd made too much and didn't want it to go to waste. We both knew she was making sure I ate. Some evenings, I'd sit on her porch with her and Mr. Patterson, listening to their stories about Asheville in the 70s and 80s, before the tourists and the breweries and the rapid gentrification. This neighborhood used to be all Black families, Mrs. Patterson told me one evening in late September. Teachers, postal workers, people who worked at the hospital. We all knew each other, looked after each other's kids. Now it's mixed, which isn't bad necessarily, but it's different. People don't connect the same way. That's what I'm trying to change, I said, with events like the block party, building those connections across lines. And you did. What happened with Marcus was unfortunate, but what you created that day, that was real community. People saw you stand up for yourself with dignity. They saw you help that young girl even though you had every right to hate her. That meant something. It didn't feel dignified. It felt humiliating. Honey, dignity isn't about whether you feel humiliated. It's about how you carry yourself through humiliation. And you carried yourself like a queen. I wanted to believe her. Some days I did. Other days I still felt like a fool who'd been played, whose personal crisis had become neighborhood entertainment. Marcus kept trying to contact me through September, despite the separation agreement that specified no contact except through lawyers. He'd create new phone numbers after I blocked the old ones. He'd send emails to my work address. He'd leave notes on my car. Patricia documented everything and sent cease and desist letters, but Marcus seemed determined to force a conversation I didn't want to have. His messages followed a predictable pattern. First, apologies and begging, then anger and blame, then manipulation and gaslighting, then back to apologies. A cycle that would have sucked me back in a year ago, but now just made me tired. One email in particular stuck with me. You're being cruel and vindictive. I made a mistake, yes, but you're punishing me forever. What happened to forgiveness? What happened to for better or worse? You're not the woman I married. I wrote back, the only time I responded directly. You're right. I'm not the woman you married. That woman trusted you. That woman believed your lies. That woman thought she was the problem when you were distant and cold. That woman would have stayed and tried to make it work even after you cheated. I'm glad she's gone. This woman knows her worth. This woman won't accept crumbs and call it a meal. This woman is done. Then I blocked that email address too. In early October, Patricia Okoye called with good news. Marcus had agreed to settle. He'd get his car, his personal possessions, and $5,000. I'd keep the house, my retirement account, my car, everything else. He wouldn't ask for spousal support. The separation would be finalized immediately, and we'd file for absolute divorce after the mandatory 1-year waiting period. He caved, Patricia said, satisfaction clear in her voice. His lawyer finally made him understand that going to trial would mean public testimony about his affair, about lying to both you and Simone, about all of it. He wants to avoid that. What about child support for Simone? That's between them and not part of your divorce. But yes, he'll owe her child support. The state will make sure of that. Good. How do you feel? Relieved, exhausted, ready for it to be over? It will be. Another year and you'll be legally free. Another year. By October 2026, I'd be divorced, single, starting completely over at 29. The thought terrified me and excited me in equal measure. I signed the settlement papers in Patricia's office on a Thursday afternoon. My hand shook slightly as I wrote my signature, making it real, making it final. This marriage I'd believed in, fought for, cried over, done, finished, over. Congratulations, Patricia said when it was done. You got everything you wanted. Did I, though? I wanted a marriage, a partner, a future. You wanted those things with the wrong person. Now you're free to find the right person, or not find anyone at all and just live your life. Either way, you're free. Free. Such a simple word for such a complicated feeling. October in Asheville was gorgeous. Peak leaf season, tourists everywhere. the mountains painted in reds and golds and oranges. I took myself on hikes I used to do with Marcus, reclaiming them as mine. I went to breweries alone, learned to enjoy my own company. I redecorated the house, painting the bedroom a soft gray blue that felt nothing like the beige Marcus had insisted on. I bought new sheets, new towels, new everything that didn't carry memories of him. I was learning to be single again. Learning what I liked without considering anyone else's preferences. Learning that I actually preferred quiet evenings with a book over loud nights out. Learning that I was funny and smart and interesting all by myself, without needing a man to validate those qualities. Simone sent me updates about Naomi. Photos, small stories, gratitude I didn't quite know how to receive. The baby was healthy, hitting all her milestones, apparently had Marcus's dimples and Simone's eyes. Marcus was inconsistent with his visits, Simone reported. He'd promise to come and then cancel. He'd stay for 10 minutes and claim he had somewhere else to be. He'd forget to bring diapers or formula like he said he would. You were right about him, Simone texted one day. He hasn't changed. I didn't respond with, I told you so, though I wanted to. Instead, I sent, you and Naomi deserve better. Don't settle for his scraps. Patricia, the retired teacher, had become Simone's surrogate mother, apparently. She helped with babysitting, taught Simone about budgeting and time management, went to pediatrician appointments when Marcus didn't show. She sent me updates too, checking on me while also keeping me informed about the baby I was connected to, whether I liked it or not. You don't have to have a relationship with that child, Dr. Martinez told me in therapy when I expressed confusion about my feelings. You're not obligated to be involved just because you were there for the birth. I know that, but I also don't hate her. She's innocent in all this. You can acknowledge her existence without being involved in her life. Those aren't contradictory positions. What if Simone wants to be friends? Do you want to be friends with her? I don't know. Part of me thinks it would be healing somehow. Like, if we can both move past what Marcus did, maybe that proves he didn't break us. But another part of me thinks that's insane. She slept with my husband. Why would I want to be friends with her? Both parts are valid. You don't have to decide right now. You can let the relationship evolve naturally or not evolve at all. That's what I did. I responded to Simone's texts but didn't initiate conversations. I looked at photos of Naomi but didn't ask to visit. I kept a polite distance that felt protective and also maybe a little sad. November brought Thanksgiving, which I'd been dreading. Usually Marcus and I would drive to Charlotte to spend it with my family. My aunt, my cousins, the network of relatives who'd loved my mama and transferred that love to me. But this year I didn't want to face their questions and pity, didn't want to explain the divorce, didn't want to be the tragic figure at the table. Jasmine invited me to her family's Thanksgiving in Atlanta. Mrs. Patterson invited me to hers with her children and grandchildren. Sarah and David invited me to a Friendsgiving they were hosting. I said no to all of them and immediately regretted it. Thanksgiving Day, I woke up alone in my house. No plans, no obligations, no distractions from the fact that my life looked nothing like I'd imagined it would. I laid in bed until noon, scrolling through social media, looking at everyone else's perfect families and feeling sorry for myself. Then my phone rang. Simone. Hey, she said when I answered. I know this is weird, but Patricia and I are doing Thanksgiving at her place. Just the three of us. Me, her, and Naomi. And we were wondering if you wanted to come. I don't think that's a good idea. I know it's weird. But Patricia made enough food for an army, and I just thought, I don't know. You were there when Naomi was born. You helped me through the hardest day of my life. And it's Thanksgiving. Nobody should be alone on Thanksgiving. I thought about saying no. Thought about protecting myself, maintaining boundaries, avoiding the complexity of sharing a holiday with my ex-husband's baby mama. But I also thought about sitting alone in my house all day, marinating in self-pity, wishing I'd said yes to someone's invitation. What time? 2:00. I'll text you the address. Patricia's apartment was small but immaculately kept, with family photos covering every wall and the smell of turkey and dressing filling the space. She greeted me at the door with a hug like we were old friends. I'm so glad you came. Simone wasn't sure you would. I wasn't sure either. Naomi was 3 months old now, chunky and alert, making those baby sounds that aren't quite words but feel like communication. She was in a bouncer seat in the living room, and when I walked past, she looked at me with wide, dark eyes that were definitely Marcus's. I felt something twist in my chest. This child was connected to me whether I liked it or not. She was my almost stepdaughter, the result of my marriage's destruction, a living reminder of betrayal. But she was also just a baby, innocent, perfect, deserving of love. You want to hold her? Simone asked tentatively. I don't know. You don't have to. I just thought, never mind. But I picked her up anyway, settled her in my arms, felt her solid weight, looked at her perfect little face, and she smiled at me, probably just gas, but it felt like recognition. Hi, Naomi, I whispered. I'm Kendra. We ate Thanksgiving dinner at Patricia's small table, turkey and dressing, collard greens, mac and cheese, sweet potato casserole, cranberry sauce, rolls. Patricia said grace, thanking God for bringing 3 generations of strong women together, for new beginnings, for the ways suffering produces perseverance, and perseverance produces character, and character produces hope. It was the strangest Thanksgiving of my life, and also maybe one of the best. We talked about everything except Marcus. Patricia told stories about her 30 years teaching middle school English, about students who'd gone on to become doctors and lawyers and artists. Simone talked about her plans to expand her taco truck business, maybe get a second truck, maybe eventually a brick-and-mortar restaurant. I talked about my work, about the health fair we were planning for December, about my vision for continued community building. And Naomi just existed in her bouncer seat, occasionally fussing, mostly sleeping, being a baby while 3 women whose lives she'd changed ate pie and found something like peace. I need to say something, Simone said when we were cleaning up. I know I keep apologizing, but I need you to know what you did today, coming here, being kind to me and Naomi, that took more strength than I have. If I were you, I don't think I could do it. You don't know what you could do until you have to do it, I said. 6 months ago, I didn't think I could stand up to Marcus in front of my whole neighborhood, but I did. You surprise yourself when you have to. Still, thank you. Patricia watched us with something like pride. You two are going to be all right. Both of you. You're stronger than you know. I left Patricia's apartment around 6, full of food and feeling lighter than I had in months. Maybe forgiveness wasn't about excusing what happened. Maybe it was about refusing to let what happened define the rest of your life. Maybe it was about choosing peace over bitterness, even when bitterness felt more justified. December arrived with surprising warmth. 70s most days, like North Carolina couldn't decide if it was winter or not. I threw myself into planning the community health fair, using lessons learned from the block party. This time, I didn't ask Marcus for help. Didn't need his help. Did everything myself with support from coworkers and volunteers, and discovered I was actually better at it without him. The health fair was a success. Free blood pressure screenings, diabetes testing, flu shots, nutrition counseling, mental health resources. We served over 200 people, signed 30 people up for health insurance, connected 40 more with primary care providers. It was everything I'd hoped the block party would be, without the personal drama. My boss pulled me aside afterward. Kendra, I don't know if you know this, but you've been absolutely crushing it these last few months. The block party, despite everything that happened personally, was a huge success. This health fair was excellent. Your vaccination clinic numbers are up. I'm recommending you for a promotion. A promotion? Senior Community Health Coordinator. It comes with a raise, an office, more autonomy. You've earned it. I went home that night and cried. Happy tears this time. Proud tears. Because while my personal life had imploded, my professional life was thriving. While Marcus had been taking from me, I'd been building something real and meaningful. While he'd been lying, I'd been growing. Christmas approached, and this time I didn't hide. I went to Charlotte for Christmas Eve with my family, endured their questions about the divorce with as much grace as I could manage, let my aunt feed me too much food, and my cousins drag me to a party where I actually had fun. I spent Christmas Day with Jasmine and her family in Atlanta, laughing until my stomach hurt, playing games with her nieces and nephews, feeling like maybe I could have joy again. New Year's Eve, I did something radical. I stayed home alone by choice, made myself a nice dinner, opened a bottle of wine, reflected on the year that had nearly broken me but ultimately made me stronger. At midnight, I stood on my front porch, my house, my life, and watched fireworks explode over the mountains. My phone buzzed with texts from friends and family. Happy New Year messages, you got this messages, proud of you messages, and one from Simone. Thank you for being in our lives this year. Naomi and I are lucky to know you. I looked at that message for a long time before responding. Happy New Year. Give Naomi a kiss from me. January 2026 arrived cold and clear. I got the promotion, moved into my new office, started planning bigger initiatives. I continued therapy, continued building friendships, continued learning who I was outside of being Marcus's wife. I started dating casually, nothing serious, just coffee dates and dinners, remembering how to be romanced, learning what I actually wanted in a partner now that I knew what I didn't want. Simone and I developed a strange but genuine friendship. We met for coffee once a month, usually with Patricia, sometimes just the two of us. We talked about life and work and motherhood and healing. She'd bring Naomi, and I'd hold her, marvel at how fast she was growing, feel something complicated but not painful anymore when I looked at Marcus's features in her face. "Do you think you'll ever have kids?" Simone asked me one afternoon in February. "Maybe. Someday. With the right person. You're still young. 29 this year. Not that young." "That's so young. You have time for everything. New relationship, marriage if you want it, kids, all of it. Do you think about getting married?" I asked her. "Sometimes, but I'm focusing on Naomi and my business right now. Romance can wait." Smart. We were both building new lives from the wreckage Marcus had left behind. Different lives than we'd planned, but good lives nonetheless. Marcus tried one last time to contact me in March, showing up at my office. Security called me to the lobby, and I found him there looking thinner and tired, wearing a desperation that didn't move me. "Kendra, please, can we just talk?" "No. 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking. I don't owe you 5 minutes. I don't owe you anything. I know I messed up. You keep saying that like it minimizes what you did. You didn't mess up. You betrayed me repeatedly for 8 months. You lied to me and to Simone. You got another woman pregnant while married to me. You brought her to my event. You chose all of that. I was unhappy. Then you should have left. You should have asked for a divorce. You should have been honest. But instead, you lied and cheated and made me feel crazy for noticing something was wrong. You stole time from me. Time I could have spent building a real life with someone who actually loved me. I did love you. No. You loved what I did for you. You loved having someone to pay your bills and boost your ego and clean up your messes. But me? You never loved me. You don't even know who I am. That's not fair. Life's not fair, Marcus. You taught me that. Now leave before I call the police." He left, and I never saw him again. The absolute divorce was finalized in June 2026, 1 year after the block party that changed everything. Patricia handled all the paperwork. I didn't have to see Marcus or speak to him, just signed documents that ended our marriage legally and officially. "How does it feel?" Patricia asked when it was done. "Free," I said, and meant it. That summer, I started planning the 2nd annual Montford Avenue block party. Some people asked if I was sure, if it wasn't too painful to do it again, but I was sure. That day had been traumatic, yes, but it had also been the beginning of my liberation. It had brought me community, shown me my strength, given me a story of survival to share. The second block party happened on a Saturday in July, and it was perfect. Bigger than the first year, better organized, more vendors, more neighbors, more connection. No drama this time. Just music and food and laughter and the kind of community I'd always believed was possible. I stood at the microphone for closing remarks as the sun set behind the mountains, looking out at the crowd of faces that had become family. "Thank you all for being here tonight," I said. Last year, this event was both the best and worst day of my life. Some of you witnessed that. Some of you supported me through it. All of you showed me what community really means. So this year, I want to dedicate this party to every person who's ever had to start over. Every person who's faced public humiliation and chosen dignity. Every person who's been betrayed and chose healing over bitterness. Every person who's learned that the ending of one thing is just the beginning of something else. This one's for us. The crowd erupted in applause. And as I looked out at them, at Mrs. Patterson and Mr. Patterson dancing, at Jasmine laughing with Devin, at Simone serving tacos with Naomi strapped to her chest, at Patricia watching it all with proud eyes, at neighbors old and new celebrating together, I felt something I'd been chasing for 2 years: peace. Not the absence of pain, but the presence of acceptance. Not forgetting what happened, but integrating it into my story without letting it define me. Not being unchanged, but being changed in ways that made me stronger, wiser, more compassionate. I was Kendra Wallace, 29 years old, divorced, living in Asheville, North Carolina. My husband had flashed a baby bump at my street party, and my permit signature had ended his little parade. But it hadn't ended mine. If anything, I was just getting started. If you've made it this far in my story, thank you for listening. Thank you for witnessing. Thank you for caring about a Black woman in North Carolina who got betrayed and survived and built something beautiful from the broken pieces. Hit that like button if this resonated with you, subscribe if you want to hear more stories like this, and turn on notifications, because life keeps teaching me lessons worth sharing. I learned that betrayal doesn't have to break you, that public humiliation can become public testimony, that the worst day of your life can be the catalyst for the best version of yourself. That forgiveness isn't about excusing the harm, but about refusing to let it poison your future. That community isn't just about showing up for celebrations, but about holding each other through devastation. I learned that I'm stronger than I knew, braver than I felt, more capable than I believed. That I don't need a man to validate my worth or complete my life. That being alone isn't the same as being lonely. That building a life that's authentically mine, even if it looks nothing like I planned, is the most radical act of self-love I could commit. Marcus flashed a baby bump at my street party, thinking he could humiliate me into silence, could keep his double life going, could have his cake and eat it too. But my permit signature, my name, my authority, my power, ended his little parade and started mine. The mountains behind me are turning gold with late summer light. The air smells like possibility and barbecue smoke. And somewhere in this city, a 2-year-old girl named Naomi is growing up. And maybe someday I'll tell her this story. The story of how her birth marked my rebirth. How her father's worst moment became my liberation. But that's a story for another day. Today, I'm standing on my porch in the neighborhood I helped build, in the life I created from scratch, in the skin that finally feels like home. I'm whole. I'm healing. I'm here. And I'm not going anywhere.